welcome to the DAZN Soccer Show. I'm Adi Oladipo, joined by former Aston Villa, Liverpool and Blackburn fullback Stephen Warnock. It's all been about the Champions League this week, some crucial games for British clubs, some big games for European sides as well. Stephen, I want to start with your former club, Liverpool. Massive game for them against Rangers. It's not been the kind of start we expected from Liverpool. They had so many questions going into this game against Rangers. Obviously, look, a 2-0 victory. Did they answer a lot of those questions?
Yes and no. I think they were expected to win the game. I think if they'd have lost the game, then there'd have been many more questions asked, even if they'd have drawn the game. But I think before the game, there was questions about the formation Liverpool were looking to play. Jurgen Klopp tinkered with that a little bit. He has played it previously throughout the season. He's sort of gone to that during games and gone to the two sitting players and gone quite attack-minded in the forward positions. But Rangers were poor on the night. I'm not going to lie. I thought they were very disappointing. They just went to contain Liverpool to frustrate them. I think they went for a point and didn't get it and were quite poor. So from Liverpool's point of view, I'm not sure how much they will have learned being in that system.
Yeah, I want to focus on two players. Someone that obviously played in your position, but on the right side in Trent, and also Darwin Núñez. Trent's obviously under a lot of pressure to get into that England squad. Not the greatest game against Brighton, a better game against Rangers. And Núñez obviously is coming for big money. There's been this comparison with Haaland, who started like a crazy man in front of goal. What do you make of Darwin Núñez's performance and Trent's performances?
Well, firstly, I'll start with Trent. I think, a lot of criticism has been sort of put towards him this season, but Liverpool have been poor themselves on a whole, and defensively as a unit, they've not been great, and Trent suffered from that. I think we saw against Rangers the positional sense of Jordan Henderson sitting in at right back whenever
Mm.
Trent went forward, and that allowed that protection and that ability for Trent to go forward, and we saw the best from him. I think there's been a lot made of his body positioning, his intensity to defend in 1v1 situations. But we have to remember that's not really being asked of him by Jurgen Klopp. I think when you speak to Jurgen Klopp, he's the first one to defend him and says, that's my issue. That's the way I want him to play. And I think when you look at the setup with England, he'd be asked to play a completely different role, which doesn't suit his ability or doesn't suit his attributes when going forward and defensively. With Darwin Núñez, he got off to the worst possible start, didn't he? With the sending off in the Premier League, and then he's missed those 3 games, and you're itching to get on the pitch. And obviously, coming back from international duty against Brighton, he wasn't quite fit enough. They said he had hamstring problems, and then he gets his start up front and some clever runs in behind the Rangers back line, who sat really deep, but not that composure to finish. When you look at Haaland and you see that composure that he's got at the moment, and there's two big differences. One big difference, and that's confidence. Haaland's got the confidence in front of goal, which never really seems to evade him, which is probably his mental strength on the football pitch. Whereas Núñez, after getting that red card and wanting a good start to his career, it hasn't quite gone his way. I think it was interesting listening to his interview after the game, where he said Jurgen Klopp, when he speaks, he says, "I don't know what he's saying." So I think there's a language barrier. He has to get over that language barrier quickly. I know Thiago's pretty much his interpreter. When you watch the team meetings out on the pitch before the Champions League games or Premier League games, you often see Thiago stood next to him, basically translating straight away what Jurgen Klopp's saying. That needs to change quickly. He needs to make sure that he can speak the language as quick as possible, or at least take on board some of what Jurgen Klopp's saying, because you've got to understand the tactics. And we saw it with a couple of other players, in Fabinho and Andrew Robertson, where at the beginning they didn't quite get the tactics of the manager, but once they did, then they hit the ground, and we've seen the best of those two players. So fingers crossed we can see the best from Núñez in the not too distant future.
Yeah, Liverpool, one of the favourites for the Champions League, regardless of their start this season. The favourites for the title are Man City. They thrashed Copenhagen 5-0. Haaland, talk of the town again, 2 goals, sort of hooked at half-time, could have scored 4 or 5 or 6. 19 for the season so far. Erling Haaland and Rooney in October.
Oh,
I remember someone asked me, Stephen, what would be a good total for him in his first season? I was like, 25, 30. He'll get that before the World Cup break.
yeah, you would have thought so. I mean, the guy's just a phenomenon, isn't he? He is absolutely brilliant. I know there's so much talk about the amount of touches he has. He doesn't link play up. Who cares if you're scoring the goals that he's
Yeah.
scoring, the opportunities that he's creating, the fear he's putting into defenders before he even steps on the pitch. You can see the backline where backlines are just dropping so deep, they're so nervous, they don't know how to play against him. But then you try and stop the service to him, and it's like, well, you've got De Bruyne, you've got Grealish, Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, Mahrez, and you look at that and you say, well, how do we deal with this situation? They are so blessed with the talent that they've got going forward, Manchester City. They're going to be so hard to stop. I think the biggest question mark, and I spoke to Eric Bakker, the former Leeds player, Norwegian, who knows Haaland's dad very well. And he said the only question mark they have at the moment is will he stay fit because of his injury record in the past? However, on the flip side, the way I look at it now is that he's gone to arguably the biggest football club, well, the most resourceful football club in world football. So they're going to make sure that everything is done for him. The sports science, the medical department, everyone will be looking at him now saying, we have to make sure he's right. So the work that will be going on behind the scenes, it would not surprise me if he had his own individual sports scientist working with him day in, day out to make sure that he is on that football pitch every single
Yeah.
time that Manchester City have a game.
I remember watching him in the Manchester derby, and obviously he goes through the middle a lot, and I saw Varane and Lissandro Martinez struggling to pick him up. But he also goes to the wings as well, doesn't he? As a
Yeah.
fullback, how would you deal with him? What do you do? Do you stay tight? Do you give him space? How do you handle him?
I'd ask him to go to the other side. I'd be saying, do me a favour, go the other way. Again, I mean, that is the big thing. I think what you're finding with players now is that they're thinking, well, I'll see how I'll go against him. I'll try and be physical with him, and we just see that pure strength that he has to brush players aside. And then you think, okay, well, I'll give him 2 or 3 yards. I'll make sure that I've got time and space. He actually wants them 2 or 3 yards because he knows that he can never get caught offside, but he's got that
Yeah,
speed to accelerate away from you. So you're looking at it thinking, well, how do I stop him? I think it's a very, very tough question. I think the big thing is you try and stop the source of De Bruyne, of Mahrez, etc., to get on the ball, and you're hoping that you can put enough pressure on them or your midfielders can to stop a quality ball going into him. But it often seems, even when the ball's not that great into him, such as his physicality and his awareness of what's around him is that he deals with those situations extremely well. And I mentioned it before, Addy. It's confidence. When you're that confident, you're not afraid of anything. So even poor balls that are coming into you, it's like, well, I'll make them good.
yeah,
I'll make them
yeah.
okay. So very, very difficult to stop at the moment.
Very quickly, finally on it. How many goals do you think he's going to get this season, Stephen?
If he continues in the form that he's in and stays fit, my only concern is, and this is the one sort of thing I've looked at with him, is he won't want the World Cup break.
Yeah,
So he'll be looking at it thinking, I want momentum. I want to keep on going here. I want to keep on scoring. That month could either do him, it could be brilliant for him, and it could be the worst thing that happens to the Premier League because he comes back fit, refreshed, and ready to go again. Or it could break that rhythm that he's got into. If he keeps that rhythm after the World Cup, you'll see him getting easily 45 goals. Easily.
oof,
Because he's that good. He is. I mean, I look at him and think every chance that comes into him, whether it's head, left foot, right foot, edge of the box, tap ins, he's there for everything. He's just phenomenal.
no, he is. Honestly, scary, scary talent. And I'm with you. I think it could be 40, 50, could be 60 goals. It is that crazy.
You're going to
Let's talk
give me a
about
number then?
Chelsea. Yeah, yeah.
Go on, you give me your number. I gave you mine.
I'm thinking 55 goals. If he stays
Oh,
fit,
nice.
if he stays
Yeah.
fit and he's not rested, honestly, we're talking what 19 goals in October. 19 goals. We're not even a quarter of the season away through yet. So I potentially think he could break that 50 goal barrier, which is incredible. But I do think Pep's going to rest him for League Cup and FA Cup games, and that's the reason it might drop down
True.
to 40.
Yeah.
Might drop down to 40, which is insane in itself.
That's not bad.
Let's focus on Chelsea. Massive game for Graham Potter, second game in charge of Chelsea in the Champions League. This time, though, against the Italian giants AC Milan. Easy win. It really was an easy win. Obviously, look, AC Milan had their injury problems, a lot of players not picked. But regardless, AC Milan coming to town and Chelsea winning 3-0. And the standout for them was Reece James. There's been so much conversation about this right-back berth for England. I don't think England have ever had this many good right-backs. And a couple of good ones could be left at home. Reece James, though, 100% on the plane to Qatar.
Oh, 100%. If he's fit and he's he's another one who's had injury problems in the past, but if he's fit, he goes 100%. I love watching Reece James play. He's a different player to Trent. I mean, everyone keeps on comparing them, saying Reece James is better defensively. Yes, he probably is. Reece James can take people on in 1v1 situations. Yeah, he can. But Trent's a better passer of the ball. There's no two ways about it. The crossing ability of both players is brilliant, but it's quite different. Reece James likes to really whip a ball low and hard into the front post areas, but then he can also sort of flight it in, whereas Trent likes to play a little bit deeper. Reece James likes to get to the line and sort of play them balls from probably close in around the penalty area. But yeah, he's just a phenomenal player. When he gets on the ball and he gets you in 1v1 situations, you start to panic. You really do. I remember speaking to David Sharp, who's the old Wigan chairman, when he was on loan at Wigan, and he was playing centre midfield. And David said, he will go to the World Cup. He was adamant. He said, he will play for England and go to the World Cup. He said, he's the best player I've seen at Wigan. And he said that he's just head and shoulders above everyone. And he said he's far too good for the Championship. They bought him in as Paul Cook as well, spoke to Paul Cook about him. And he said, we bought him in as a backup. And he said, within 2 sessions, we knew this guy's got to play. And he said, and we play him anywhere on the park because he's that good. And I think we're seeing it even now, is that when he steps into Premier League and Champions League, he is that good that he's even finding that level. Not easy, but he's finding it that he's very, very comfortable at that level. And he's just a brilliant player.
Yeah, no, he really is. And look, massive win and fantastic win for Graham Potter as well in Europe. First win in Europe for him as a manager. Let's talk about Tottenham very quickly. Disappointing performance, I think it's fair to say, against the Europa League champions, Eintracht Frankfurt. Tottenham fans are having a bit of a moan about Conte at the moment, just in terms of the style of play. You know, there is a Tottenham way, if you like. They're not seeing that Tottenham way so far, but they need to maybe rein it in a little bit because they do have one of the best managers in the world, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Listen, you have to be careful what you wish for when you're a football fan, and we all think we know how to pick a team and what style we want to play and how we play it and things like that. It's very difficult. And one thing I would say about Conte is that he's a serial winner. And you look at what he's done and how he's transformed Tottenham. They're still a work in progress. They are miles ahead from where they were last season. They're in a great position. They've lost one game in the league, and it was against Arsenal, and very unfortunate after the sending off because they were in a good position. But they probably should have been a couple of goals ahead against Eintracht Frankfurt in the first half. Missed opportunities. That happens in football games. The one thing that they didn't do, though, was lose like they did away at Sporting. So do you look at that and say, okay, that's a lesson learned? You've always got to flip it and look at the positives as much as you can. I don't worry about Conte whatsoever. I think you see the players are fully behind him. They want to play for him. They know how good he is as a manager, and that's important.
Yeah, look, big wins for the British sides in Europe. Tottenham got a point, but that's still a good point away from home. They say is always good. Quick mention, by the way, on Jude Bellingham, who captained Borussia Dortmund. Captain of Borussia Dortmund at 19. Liverpool better hope that they've already secured that deal because the price keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
And a lovely goal as well.
And a lovely goal, indeed. Fantastic player. Don't forget, the UEFA Women's Champions League starts in just under a fortnight. Remember, that is live and exclusive on DAZN. Big game as well, October the 19th. Lyon versus Arsenal.
This is unbelievable. Let's go. Vamos! This could be the beginning of a brand new era. To be honest, it gives me goosebumps.
Look at that attendance. Over 91,000 fans.
Biggest and the best in European football.
Oh, wow! What a goal that is!
C'est Ada Egerberg qui vient éteindre. Bellissima.
Amandine Henry with a spectacular goal for Lyon.
Thanks for DAZN as well. You did amazingly this year.